The Chicago Sky have reportedly moved Angel Reese to the Atlanta Dream, and the return? Just a couple of late first-round picks and a second-round swap. Not exactly the kind of haul you'd expect for a player with her resume. And what's even more surprising, Chicago didn't hesitate for a second. We're talking about a two-time All-Star, a record-breaking rebounder, someone who racks up double-doubles like it's routine. Yet the Sky essentially handed her over for what feels like future gambles rather than proven value. So the big question is obvious. Why would a team let go of a player like that without a fight? According to recent leaks, there's more going on behind the scenes than fans initially realized. And it reportedly ties back to the ongoing narrative surrounding her rivalry with Caitlin Clark, a storyline that may not have been as organic as it seemed. Now it raises an even bigger question. Is Angel Reese's future in the WNBA starting to look uncertain? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Angel Reese traded to the Atlanta Dream, as you guys know. Jeff Pagliocca couldn't wait to send her packing. See ya. In fact, reports are coming out that Jeff Pagliocca was so excited about sending Angel Reese to Atlanta, he personally packed her bag.
Let's bring up something people don't talk about nearly enough. If Angel Reese was truly elevating the Chicago Sky, then how do you explain the results? In 2025, the team ended the season at 10-34 and missed the playoffs again for the second year in a row with her on the roster. When Reese came into the league in 2024, the hype was undeniable. She had just won a national championship at LSU. Her popularity was skyrocketing, and it felt like Chicago had just secured their next franchise centerpiece before she even stepped on the court. And to be fair, her individual stats looked impressive. She was stacking double-doubles, breaking rebounding records, and earning all-star recognition. On the surface, it all pointed to a player making a real impact. But here's where things don't add up. Despite those numbers, the team went 13-27 in her rookie season, and then somehow got even worse, finishing 10-34 the following year. That's not growth. That's not progress. That's a team going in the wrong direction, fast.
It's just a fact. She is, it's more than a fact. She is not good at layups. But I was looking at her stats. I jotted some down right here, and she shoots an abysmal 39% from the field. She shot below 50% on shots less than 5 feet away, which is bad. And even worse than that is that shots from 5 to 9 feet, 13%.
Now let's take a closer look at those rebounding stats, because this is where things start to raise eyebrows. A significant portion of Angel Reese's rebounds actually came from her own missed shots. That's why social media started throwing around the term me-bounds. The pattern was hard to ignore. She'd put up a tough shot near the rim, miss it, well then grab the rebound herself. Stat sheet gets a boost, but in reality, the possession just reset after a failed attempt. So while the rebound totals looked dominant, they didn't always translate to efficient offense. Her shooting numbers back that up. In 2024, she shot just 39% from the field. The following year, it improved slightly to around 42%, but that's still not ideal, especially for a player operating close to the basket. And from beyond the arc, she hovered around 18% both seasons, which is low enough that defenses simply didn't bother guarding her out there. At that point, it becomes a real issue. If a post player is missing a large share of shots right at the rim and doesn't pose any threat from distance, defenses can collapse without consequence, and that puts the entire offense under pressure.
It's time to launch a federal investigation into Angel Reese for sports gambling. Bang! You could only be this bad on purpose, right? Bang! With the recent developments of NBA players and NBA coaches being investigated by the FBI for sports gambling, is it time we take a look at Angel Reese? I think so. Bang! She told everyone, take my over and rebounds. Trust me, I grabbed my own misses. Bang! It really makes you think, was she throwing games? They finished last in the conference. Bang!
Another issue? She wasn't really setting up her teammates. There wasn't much playmaking coming out of the post. No consistent kickouts, no sharp reads in the pick and roll, nothing that regularly created easier opportunities for others. As a result, Chicago ended up funneling a large part of their offense through a player who often needed multiple attempts to produce what a more efficient scorer could generate in a single possession. And despite all of that usage, the wins never followed. Now compare that to what was happening at the same time in Indiana. Caitlin Clark stepped into the league and immediately made an impact, shattering records in her rookie year and leading the Fever back to the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade. But more importantly, she elevated everyone around her. Players like Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Ian and Lexi Hull all benefited from sharing the court with her. Clark didn't just put up numbers. She controlled the flow of the game, created open looks, and made life easier for her teammates. That's the difference. That's what it really looks like when a player truly makes a team better.
Angel Reese isn't even the biggest star in pretend basketball. She is getting outshined in a league where outside of Caitlin Clark, there are no stars. And you expect me to believe Angel Reese is the biggest star in basketball? What in the hell is going on?
Yes, Chicago was already struggling before Angel Reese got there, but the key point is, things didn't improve once she arrived. And that's what front offices really care about. Not all-star nods, not record-breaking stat lines. They're focused on one thing, wins. And in that category, the sky kept moving in the wrong direction. Each season she played, the record got worse. Supporters leaned heavily on her individual stats to argue her value, and taken on their own, those numbers do look strong. But stats only carry real weight if they translate into team success. That never happened in Chicago. Instead of climbing the standings, the sky slipped further down, ending 2025 with one of the worst records in the league. So even before you bring up any off-court issues, locker room tension, suspensions, or public comments, the on-court argument for building around Angel Reese was already starting to fall apart.
Second 2025, Angel Reese had one of the greatest stat padding possessions of all time. 4 to 5 offensive rebounds this possession. It is humanly impossible to be this bad. FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, somebody investigate! Look at that! Bang! Wide open layup turns into a brick show. She has to be doing it on purpose, right? Bang! Doesn't get more blatant than this. Throwing the game, you have to ban her for life. What is that? Bang! There's evidence every single game. I mean, come on, she's shooting backwards without looking. Nancy Drew, where are you?
There's a version of events where a young star speaks out, gets misread, and the organization blows things out of proportion. But that's not what unfolded in Chicago. Instead, the issues kept piling up, one situation after another, until it became hard to give the benefit of the doubt. It started right away in the opening game of the 2025 WNBA season in Indiana. Angel Reese made a public claim that she had faced discrimination during the game. That's a serious allegation, and the league took it seriously enough to investigate. But in the end, they found no evidence to support it. So from day one, instead of letting her play do the talking, the response to adversity seemed to be escalating the situation publicly. And that moment set the tone for everything that came after.
Angel Reese acted like a total and complete idiot, and it got called out for it. Over a take foul. Stop it. We all know what's behind this.
Then things took another turn with what was said about Courtney Vandersloot, and this part really stands out. During the season, Vandersloot suffered a torn ACL, a serious injury that had her sidelined and focused on recovery. But while she was going through that, Angel Reese went public with her thoughts about the team's direction, and she didn't hold back. In interviews, Reese suggested the Sky couldn't depend on Vandersloot returning at her age, and hinted that the team needed someone younger, more experienced, and ready to compete at a high level right now. This wasn't some behind-the-scenes comment that leaked out. It was said openly, on record, about a teammate who was already dealing with a major injury. And unsurprisingly, reports indicated that Vandersloot didn't take that lightly, and this isn't just any player we're talking about. Vandersloot is a respected veteran with a strong reputation across the league. Calling her out like that, especially while she's sidelined, sent a message far beyond just one person, because when you say something like that publicly, it doesn't stay in the media. It follows you straight into the locker room, shaping how every teammate sees you from that point on.
Need to come back at that age that she's at, Reese said. I know she'll be a great asset for us, but we can't rely on that. We need someone probably a little younger with some experience, somebody who's been playing the game and is willing to compete for a championship and has done it before. Courtney Vandersloot, by the way, 2-time WNBA champion, 5-time All-Star, 2-time All-WNBA first team, left the New York Liberty, a championship caliber team, to come help out the Chicago. Oh damn. Oh damn, oh dang, oh dang. It's all right, Courtney.
And it didn't stop with Courtney Vandersloot. Reports also pointed to tension with Camila Cardozo, her own frontcourt teammate and a player the Sky are now expected to build around moving forward. At one point during the season, things reportedly got so strained that Cardozo chose to walk away from the situation entirely. When the player you share the floor with the most reaches that point, it's no longer just a minor disagreement. It's a deeper issue that can't be fixed with a quick conversation. Then came another moment in September 2025 when Reese spoke to the Chicago Tribune about the team's direction. She said the Sky needed to bring in better talent, players who could truly compete at a high level instead of settling for what they had that season. On its own, that might sound like someone pushing for higher standards. But context matters. Those comments were made publicly while she was still part of that same roster, essentially calling out her own teammates in the media. That's not the kind of message that builds trust inside a locker room. That's the kind that creates distance and leaves damage behind.
Reese boldly and competitively called out the Chicago Sky for how they would move forward in terms of needing talent if they were going to compete, saying that she wanted to be a part of the organization and she wanted to compete at a high level. It didn't go over so well, Jay, in the public eye domain, at least as far as Chicago brass was concerned, and she actually ended up being suspended for a half a.
Eventually, things reached a breaking point. The Sky suspended Angel Reese for conduct deemed harmful to the team, and not long after, she picked up another automatic suspension after hitting her 8th technical foul of the season, and it didn't end there. Following those incidents, she missed the final 3 games of the season, with the team citing a back injury. But at the same time, clips of Reese out in Las Vegas, dancing and celebrating, started making their way around online. People noticed the timing, and naturally, questions followed. Situations like that don't come out of nowhere. Teams don't hand out suspensions over a single rough stretch. That usually comes after weeks, sometimes months, of internal issues, attempts to resolve things behind closed doors, and a pattern that just couldn't be ignored anymore. Now compare that environment to what was happening in Indiana. Caitlin Clark was also dealing with pressure and injuries of her own, but the tone around her team couldn't have been more different. Teammates like Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, Sophie Cunningham, and Kelsey Mitchell consistently spoke about her impact in a positive way, how she elevated the group and brought them together. There was a clear contrast. What was coming out of Indiana sounded like unity. What was coming out of Chicago felt like the exact opposite.
Player who herself, after her sophomore season, refused to show up to her end of season press conference. Jeff Pagliocca wants no parts of Angel Reese. And she's out of there. Shout out to Bane. Free Cardoso. She is finally free. So they just wanted to get rid of her and didn't even try to get something in.
Atlanta's front office is selling this move like they just secured a key piece for the future. They've labeled Angel Reese as a high-impact player and an ideal fit for their system, which sounds great on the surface until you really examine how this roster is built. The Dream already feature Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones in the front court. Both are traditional bigs who do their best work near the rim, and neither is known for stretching the floor or moving comfortably in open space. Jones in particular is coming off a strong 2025 season, putting up 12.8 points and 7.7 rebounds per game while earning an all-star spot. She's not someone you can just push aside or reduce to a minor role. So now, bring Reese into that mix, another player who operates primarily in the paint and doesn't offer much from the perimeter, shooting around 18% from 3. What you're left with is a crowded front court with 3 players all needing the same area on the floor to be effective. And that raises a serious question about how this is all supposed to work together.
Yeah, I'm still trying to make sense of it because you had Bree Jones and you had...
You can't realistically play Griner, Jones, and Reese together for extended stretches without running into major spacing issues. All 3 need the same areas near the basket, and none of them can reliably pull a defender out to the 3-point line. And any halfway competent defense will simply clog the paint and dare Atlanta to make shots from distance. And right now, that's not a strength of their front court. Reese's 3-point game is basically non-existent, which only makes the spacing problem worse whenever she's on the floor. That means the Dream will spend a lot of time in half-court sets, often settling for contested mid-range shots or post-ups against defenses that are already packed in. Meanwhile, Atlanta does have elite talent in the backcourt. A'ja Wilson finished 4th in MVP voting in 2025. And Ryan Howard put together an all-star caliber season, but both rely on movement, spacing, and open lanes to maximize their impact. Reese near the basket compresses all of that, limiting the space they need to operate. Fans who follow the Dream closely have noticed this immediately. The same spacing that allowed Wilson and Howard to thrive suddenly gets cut down the moment Reese is in the paint, and that's why reactions in Atlanta have been so mixed.
This right now, Angel Reese is only going to be in Atlanta for 2 years. This year and next year until her rookie contract's up with. Want to know how I know? Because Atlanta's not going to offer her the max contract. Atlanta's not going to give her the super max. Because you don't give the 4th or 5th best player on your team
And then there's the big question about locker room culture, one that no one in Atlanta's front office seems eager to tackle head on. They watched Chicago spend 2 full seasons dealing with Reese's off-court issues, suspensions, public critiques of teammates, an unsubstantiated discrimination claim, and reports of Camila Cardozo walking away from her mid-season. And Atlanta's gamble is simple. A new environment will somehow reset all of that. History, however, suggests otherwise. Teams have made that bet on high-maintenance players for decades, and it almost never pans out because the behavior doesn't stay behind in the old building. It comes with the person. Atlanta's locker room had been carefully building chemistry around Aja Wilson and Ryan Howard. And now they're adding a player whose previous team formally documented a suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. That's not just a minor detail. It's literally the last official mark Chicago put on record before shipping her out, and it's going to follow her into her next chapter.
Yeah, let me tell you something right now. Unless there are extenuating circumstances, and the circumstances have got to be major, teams do not trade superstar players because they're outspoken. Teams do not send away their cash cow because they're difficult to work.
Atlanta didn't just pick up a missing puzzle piece. They inherited a complicated problem. They added a player whose best statistical season coincided with her team's worst record, whose presence in the front court creates spacing headaches with no easy fix, and whose locker room history is now their responsibility instead of Chicago's. Meanwhile, Indiana is in a very different position. Caitlin Clark is returning from injury after a full offseason of preparation. Aja Boston is anchoring the defense. Essent Kelsey Mitchell is thriving in Clark's pick-and-roll system, and the coaching staff has already proven they can get this group into the playoffs. Remember, the Fever eliminated the Dream in the first round of the 2025 playoffs, and they did it even while Clark was sidelined with a groin injury. That's a team built for consistency, cohesion, and results, and it's the kind of environment Atlanta hoped to create with Reese, but now faces an uphill battle instead.
Angel Reese did not request a trade from Chicago. The Chicago Sky said, "We just don't want to deal with the headache. We don't care. We don't want her here. She's been a locker room cancer from the jump. Quits the first year, quits the second year, fakes a back in my neck, my back, fakes a back injury, doesn't even finish her first season of Unrivaled. Can't be bothered with her second season, so she just comes in late."
Chicago accepted 2 first-round picks that won't convey until 2027 and 2028, along with a second-round swap for a 2-time All-Star and the single-season rebounding record holder. And the question fans keep asking is straightforward. If Reese is really that talented, why settle for so little? Yeah, GM Jeff Paddock publicly framed the trade around roster balance and rebuilding with Camila Cardozo at the core. That's partially true, but it doesn't explain why Chicago didn't push harder. Why didn't they shop Reese more aggressively? Why didn't they wait for a stronger offer? Why not push for a proven player in return instead of future picks that won't even arrive for years? When teams genuinely believe they're moving a star, they don't rush the process, and they certainly don't settle for such minimal compensation.
People are saying the Chicago Sky got fleeced. Let's run with that. Imagine you want to get rid of a player so bad that you're willing to get fleeced in the process. Imagine you want to get rid of a player so you're so desperate to rid your team of this player. A player whose fan base had Isabel Harrison and Dana Evans crying at the end of the season.
Let's break down what those picks actually mean, because it's important. Atlanta added Reese and now thinks they're a contender, right? But here's the reality. If the Dream start winning more games, those 2027 and 2028 first-round picks are likely to land in the 8 to 12 range, or possibly even lower. And that puts them squarely in late lottery territory with limited upside. And yet, Chicago accepted the deal quickly. That speed tells you a lot about what was really motivating this trade. Teams don't give up star players for below market returns unless getting them off the roster fast matters more than maximizing value. This wasn't about shrewd asset management. It was about closing a chapter the organization had already stopped investing in.
When you have a player of that caliber, when you have a once-in-a-lifetime or once-in-a-generation star, or even a regular superstar like Anthony Edwards or Jokic in Denver, you don't trade players of that caliber because you never know when you'll have the chance to find another one. You know who gets traded? Angel Reese.
Camila Cardozo is the player the Sky truly see as their long-term cornerstone. She's a legitimate center with a modern offensive skill set, solid footwork, a soft touch around the rim, and two-way potential that genuinely excites front offices. But here's the problem. She's also the teammate who reportedly walked out on Angel Reese during the season. After everything that happened between them, keeping both players in the same locker room simply wasn't viable. You can't build a team around Cardozo while Reese remains in the mix given the tension and disruption. The September 2025 suspension gave Chicago the official documentation they needed. Once that record existed, the trade shifted from a matter of if to when and for what. The Sky could point to the suspension and show they followed proper procedures, leaving no room for complaints from inside or outside the league. Then there's the contract factor. Reese still had 2 seasons left on her deal, meaning Chicago would continue paying a player who had publicly criticized teammates, created ongoing locker room drama, and helped produce a 10-win, 34-loss season. At some point, the cost of keeping her on the roster isn't about basketball anymore. It's about managing everything that comes with her presence.
Since they drafted Angel Reese, all of a sudden, the Bravado struggled to win games. And ESPN expects me to believe that the organization is the problem here? Either way, I don't think basketball had anything to do with why Angel Reese was traded. I think Angel Reese was traded because the Bravado thought that she was more trouble than she's worth.
Here's what Chicago really gained from this trade: a clean locker room, a genuine fresh start built around Camila Cardozo, and the chance to stop pouring front office energy into a situation that had already spiraled out of control long before the suspension made it official. The draft picks, they're almost secondary. If the league truly believed Reese was a player who improved teams, multiple franchises would have been calling Chicago, and the Sky could have held out for real market value. Instead, Atlanta's offer landed, Chicago accepted quickly, and no other team stepped in. This wasn't a front office getting outplayed. It was a front office getting exactly what it wanted: out. Now, Cardozo gets to see what the team looks like when it's genuinely built around her. Chicago didn't move Angel Reese because her stats faded. They traded her because 2 seasons of double-doubles, a suspension, public teammate callouts, and a 10-34 record prove that some numbers can fill a box score while doing nothing for the win column. And Cardozo is the player they're betting on. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark shattered 62 records in her rookie season, dragged the Fever back to the playoffs after nearly a decade, and did it without suspensions or publicly calling out teammates in the media. Ask yourself, does Atlanta really have an answer for what Clark and the Fever bring in 2026? Indiana has a fully healthy Clark, a proven playoff roster, and 0 reasons to worry about Angel Reese in a new uniform. Is Reese on her way out of the WNBA? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Click the video on the screen and we'll see you in the next one.